romance can literally change your life. But I see it when I'll have like a depressed patient and they will fall in love. And then I see them the next time, a week later, and all of their symptoms are gone.
Totally.
And I'm like, what miraculous voodoo has occurred?
Warning, this podcast is for entertainment only and not intended for medical purposes.
This thing happens when you fall in love that your kind of cognitive plan and your daily routine and your lifestyle, you kind of like fall out of your mind and you go down, I'll say metaphorically, into your heart, or the sexual thing, down into your sexual erotic center, and you become kind of like intoxicated with this new person, and you start to lose control, kind of, because your obsession, your emotional, erotic, romantic addiction to this new person now becomes more powerful, so you're not in control. It's like, super simply put, my view is, if I fall in love, David's not in control over anymore as much. Now my beloved has control over me. I'm vulnerable to her. And I don't think fucking people like that.
That sounds like a lot of when you ask people why they don't drink, and they're like, "Oh, I don't like how it feels. I feel out of control."
Yes.
Right? And it's like, well, other people are just like, "Oh, I love to drink. I go." I've even heard, well, this is a particularly psychotic individual who is like, "Oh, in the drink I find my beloved." Which
right.
I haven't heard anyone talk like that since Rumi. Rumi, the poet, right?
Right. Yeah, the poet of like whatever 1500 years ago or something.
Yeah, talking about those who drink wine within it is their beloved, right? But this idea you mention of, wait a second, there's this fear of loss of control. I had this different idea where I thought, oh my God, this whole crop of young dudes who have low sex interest.
Yeah.
And previously I was like, oh yeah, this is a good thing, man. Like, they're onto something. And then I was like, oh my God, wait a second. This may be like a mass expression of philophobia or philophobia.
Could be.
Philophobia,
yeah.
Right? Like the fear of, because it's not only of falling in love, it's just of like the fear of romantic connection, which when you look at like, well, what are the causes of it? One of the main ones is a fear of rejection.
Oh.
Right? Because otherwise they're like, oh, you've been abused in the past. You know, you have some kind of like misconception. When you start to look at the ideas of treatment, like how do you treat the person? It's systematic desensitization. And I'm like, what? Like you, and so then I realized, oh, okay, because I'm super familiar with that practice, right? And so what you would do is then like have the person imagine that they have feelings for someone. And then eventually you like show them videos of people who have feelings of someone. And then eventually like you do imaginal exposure, and then eventually it becomes
slowly work your way up.
Full on exposure therapy till eventually you have them with a prostitute, and then like, okay, I'm joking, that's only in California. That's only in California where sex therapists are a legit thing.
Oh, right.
Right? Like, but that's the treatment of it is quite fascinating. And then like, what does it mean if it is as prevalent as you're talking about?
It means falling in love is super intense, and it like shifts our state of consciousness somewhat against our will, not entirely against our will, but sometimes you fall in love against your will. And so it's like a shift in state of consciousness to a foreign thing. And if you were forced to have your if you were like forced to take a certain psychedelic drug and shift your state of consciousness against your will, people would be fucking scared of that. And it's kind of like that.
Oh man. Well, that's another great that's a better example than alcohol. Like if you were spiked with a psychedelic, you would likely freak out as your world as the way you perceive the world shifts. But like I don't think a lot of people understand how profoundly shifting this contact with the other in this romantic design really is. I don't think a lot of people really are willing to admit that.
Admit what?
Admit that like romance can literally change your life. But I see it when I'll have like a depressed patient and they will fall in love, and then I see them the next time a week later and all of their symptoms are gone.
Totally.
And I'm like, what miraculous voodoo has occurred? And they're like, oh, I met this person. This has happened to me twice where I've
seen that too.
Seriously disturbed someone who feels completely chaotic, and then they fall in love, and that is incredibly self-regulating.
Totally. I've seen that too.
Right? That's like the opposite compared to like someone who has a nice controlled, I have this regiment going, and then they fall in love and they're like, oh no, like, what am I going to do with my like savings account? Or like, what are they worried about? What are they worried? I like the experience of being swept away into that.
It's fucking the best experience there is.
Do you think if you...
But
Go
ahead.
No, you go ahead. You go.
It's the best experience there is, but it is kind of like this giving up control. And like you used the term swept away. It's like you have to let go and let the breeze sweep you away, and you don't know where the fuck it's going to take you. So you have to be cool with that. And I think less and less people are cool with that. I think people are getting more and more like kind of control freak as individualism goes further and further, and we have our nice little apartment and our nice flat screen TV, and we know exactly the foods we want. We're getting more individualistic, and so to be swept off by another person and lose control, I think less and less people are down with that. But you're cool with doing, you want to get swept away?
Yeah, and it's the same way that I want Netflix to get rid of this idea of they know what I want. Like they don't know what I want. I don't even know what I want. I think I have a type of woman that I'm interested in, and then whoop, I'm like suddenly interested in someone who is like olive skin with black hair. And I was like, I thought I liked blonde chicks. And it's like, what is this? I mean, that's a really lame example of variation. It would be better if it was like, oh, I'm into this thing, and then suddenly I'm in love with a turtle.
Well, I mean, you were trying to use blonde hair versus dark hair as a sort of analogy, but it's like it's different. It's psychological differences.
Yeah.
That this woman had this way of doing intimacy, but then this woman has this different way of doing intimacy. It's like, whoa! I didn't know you could do intimacy that way.
Yeah. Okay.